after people build, and this is surprisingly easy. It just takes like between like 30 and 5 minutes for most people, because that memory is just sitting there ready to come out. And you can be, some people like, in their 80s can still do it really quickly. So after everybody's built their memory, now it's time to share. So everybody stops building, they start to present for 1 minute. Again, for an immigrant, that might be too long, but it keeps the pace going. But also gives everybody a time to share their story. Now everybody shares their story in 1 minute. Most people take 30 seconds or less to share their story. So it kind of, it brings everybody together now, and it kind of explains what people built, and people are really happy about that. And people talk about people. This is an example of some memories. This is a person building their grandmother's house in Puerto Rico. And how the memories down there, and the different places, and what they built, the tile roof, the flowers, and all this kind of. So all these details mean something to that person, and that's really important to kind of capture. And this is working in Phoenix a couple of years ago. We're actually doing workshops in Phoenix, and we had the Phoenix Police Department working with the youth to build together. Again, to break down barriers. Now you realize that this little kid at 6 years old and this policeman can work together and build together. I was working also working up in Oregon, and we're working in we're trying to get Latinos to access parks in Eugene, Oregon. So we went to all these different locations, and one of them was English for a second language class. We did a workshop there for 70 people, and it was amazing to watch how the mothers and daughters just became one team, one tag team. And you just seen how how mother operates and how the child operates, and they kind of were playing together, and it was really nice watching that. Well, the men and the boys didn't do that; they were just separate. But the mother and daughters worked together, and they learned a lot about each other. And this is again working again. People want to tell a story; they start to bond. This is working again. This woman with the hand up is from El Salvador, and she's talking about the plaza she used to hang out at. And this woman here listening is from Santiago, Chile. And she's talking about the dead-end street that they would play soccer in, and after that, they would eat apricots. That was like their big memory as kids, but now they can kind of share these stories about public spaces and places like that. And also, this way of building also gives people another way to think about problems. In this exercise, I asked a group of Latino women, how would you improve your family life? This woman built the border between Mexico and the U.S. This is the border right here, these popsicle sticks. This is the U.S. flag and the Mexican flag is there. And these buttons are all traffic. She said every morning people leave Tijuana to go to San Diego, they spend an hour and a half on the border trying to get over. But if they had a fast track, they could spend more time with their families. But she was able to really visualize the problem in a very spatial way. And she was really happy about that, to think about it. Because a lot of times, women will tell me, well, I can't plan, I'm going to plan, but everybody can plan. Yes, the whole idea is to really get that validation going and kind of figure out, who we are, where we come from, what we value, because that's important for people to be validated through this whole process. I'm not the expert, we're all experts. We need to really kind of spread that out there, and validate it through their own experiences. All your experiences matter, no matter what it is, it matters. So what happens is step one, this individual activity, that's an icebreaker, reflection, empathy, and validation, that leads to part two. Or part two is about collaboration. And now how do you work together? Because this is probably one of the hardest parts of planning, is working together and collaborating. Because many times you run a planning meeting, somebody will come in and say, I have all the answers. Listen to me, and I have all the answers, and your problems will be solved. But planning is not about that. It's about how your idea affects others. It's not about selling. It's not about selling your ideas. It's about just working together. So this first part kind of gets ready for the second part, and and this is working in Detroit, working on with African American women and how would you improve access in Detroit. Again, they're all working together, and what you're doing here is that, unlike words, you can't really negotiate with words. You can be a bike advocate in the car guy, and you can't really negotiate. But with space, you can. You can put the car and the bike on the same table and say you're going to design that street together, and you can negotiate through space. And again, so it gives people a way of thinking about things together, and kind of collaborating, kind of building together. And the whole idea about collaboration is that we're stronger together. You bring in diverse experiences, different talents, different perspectives, and your ideas become stronger. And people see that really quickly, and then they can negotiate, for a common goal. How do we work with our different needs, our sacred resources, and how do we understand how our ideas impact each other to build something common together. And so it becomes really fun. And so people just have good. And these challenges could be anything from mobility, urban design, bike planning, pedestrian, to health, economics, social equity, sustainability. Because in the planning world, there's a lot of fuzzy words like this that people have no idea what they mean. And we just throw them out there, right? And it means something different for everybody in the room. But once you build it, it becomes very tangible. This is what sustainability means in my neighborhood. And so it's really, in fact, I just did a series of workshops in Bakersfield on the high-speed rail project, just to get people thinking about what that might look like and how it impacts the community. And then after the team worked for like 10 minutes, they present their ideas. This is working with the group of Latinas, again, in LA, and having them redesign. They chose to, so I give them a really rough, guidelines, like, design your ideal city, design your ideal street, and the group can take it, the team can take it in any direction. Again, you want to give people agency in the process. You're there to solve. You're there to learn how to solve your own problems, and figure them out. So this is a group of Latinos chose to redesign Saffron Road or Van Nuys Boulevard in Pacoima, and they put in street lights and trees and benches and public art and vendors. Anything a good urban designer would do, they did it themselves. Now they know what they want in that street, and now they have kind of value in that design. And so instead of having the architect, over here kind of design the street, they did it themselves. Now we can extract, what are the values, what are they telling us about their street? What do we want to see here? Which is really important, because you want to pull the values out of people in order to kind of create the right projects. A lot of times as planners, we'll just go there and say, what do you want? I want more parking, I want more money, I want a bigger house. And we're not Santa Claus, but I think it's more important for you to understand that underneath the community is values. You see yourself being healthy, vibrant, or environmentally conscious. So people really so you want to pull out the values from this part of the process. This is working in a Concord, East Bay, where we had people after a Zumba class. We're working with Cal Poly Sons of Vista, working on a city, working on an active design plan. We had them all redesign their streets in Concord in a really healthy way. How you improve your street. So these women design their street, with trees and stoplights and urban design and benches and all the different amenities that they thought were important. But they were able to do it themselves. Present it. So this process can be done different ways. This is working in Pershing Square in downtown LA. How many folks have been there, Pershing Square? It's probably the worst place for women in the whole city of LA. It's just a big omelet for women, right? So we took 20 women there. I told them, 10 minutes, I want you to explore this Pershing Square, find a spot you like there, and tell us why you like it. And then come back, and we're going to redesign it. And we did this on-site workshop, and it was really cool to see what they came up with. But so it's good to get people thinking about their bodies and their mental happiness in space. And like any meeting, you just take notes. You just take notes, figure out, what are people telling us here, what do we kind of say, just document it. How these things work together and how they don't work together. So another part of my work actually, I build these interactive models to get people thinking about, the city and their various. This is more of an art piece, more of a public engagement piece where you put it on site in the sidewalk or public space, and you have people just react to the model. This is actually the cornfields in LA and building a car-free Chinatown. I took off the past Indian freeway, so people can react to that space and say, yeah, it's a good idea, bad idea, but you kind of give them a visual to kind of react against, like any kind of artwork. And so it's teaching students, and so in Oregon, we're working with the Parks Department and trying to understand how to get more Latinos to use parks. So we built these models, and we took them to the local store. We had them in the lobby of the store. We had over 200 people come by just in the Saturday morning talking about parks. Just play with the model, talking about parks and what they wanted to see there. And we came up with all these ideas. We had 4 pages of just these ideas, parks.